I've been trying to get into Wazoo's veterinary school since I graduated from Western with my undergraduate degree in 2013. In that span of time, I have shadowed veterinarians at 7 different clinics around town. I have volunteered with numerous organizations, including the Humane Society and Wise Buys and the Arc of Whatcom County. I had an internship out at the Wildlife Center, and I have spent the last year and a half working directly with dogs. I was waitlisted for Wazoo's veterinary program 3 years in a row. I found out 2 weeks ago that I've finally gotten in this year. I definitely believe that Toastmasters has played a huge role in me getting accepted, and in many other parts of my life as well. It's really changed. Growing up, I was very shy, very self-conscious, and I always had this weird fear of being embarrassed. I really didn't talk to anybody outside of my close family, close friends. I never participated in class unless I was directly called upon or I had to do a presentation. And I remember whenever I had to do a presentation, if I'd mess up once or forget a word, fumble, I'd be horribly embarrassed and feel just bad about myself. And it kind of turns into a cycle. You get yourself so worked up and so nervous that you do end up messing up, and then that just reinforces your anxiety and you think you're terrible at it. I got a little bit better in college, but I definitely was still struggling a little bit. Definitely lost some points, some grades, because I just never talked in class because there were times I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Things started changing a little bit about 6 months after I graduated from Western, because I all of a sudden became a shift manager at Fred Meyer. And all of a sudden, instead of getting the orders, I now had to give them, which is a very weird transition if anyone's suddenly become management like that. And it was awkward at first, but I slowly got more comfortable in the position and I actually was getting more assertive, which was good for me. About this same time, beginning of 2014, I had my very first Wazoo interview. I was so nervous, scared, and intimidated for this interview. I had no appetite. I felt like I was gonna puke. I was cranky, really irritated, and I just wanted everybody to leave me alone. And I'm sure everybody's felt that way before. Everyone knows what that feels like. The interview went okay. It was hard in those situations to come up with really good answers really quickly instead of just kind of fumbling off one sentence and then just sitting there and calling it good. But it went okay. 3 weeks later, I found out I was waitlisted, so I clearly didn't do horribly. But that did repeat 2 more times. I got waitlisted again and again. After the first year, I was told by the administration I needed more veterinary experience. Understandable. I agree with them on that point. Year number 2, I needed more volunteer hours. All right, kind of weird, but if that's what everybody has to do, it's another hoop I have to jump through too. Year number 3, they had no suggestions for me at all. The only thing the director of admissions could tell me at all is maybe you need to work on your public speaking and improve your interviews, and you can check out this club called Toastmasters. Okay. Now, I will be perfectly honest. I wasn't horribly excited to start when I first heard about Toastmasters. It kind of sounded awkward and uncomfortable, and it sounded like a really good way for me to embarrass myself in front of a whole bunch of people. But what's the harm in trying out one meeting? And I liked it. It was fun, the people were really nice, and I felt really comfortable in the group, so I joined. As if I was gonna do something like this, which I knew I needed to do, I figured this was a good group of people to do it with. The first speech came along and I was very nervous and regretting ever deciding to come to this club. And I had a big stack of note cards that pretty much my whole speech was written on, I remember, so I didn't forget a single word, and so nobody could see that my hands were shaking like a piece of paper does. But I did fine, and I definitely lost my place a few times, but I felt I did pretty well. And that was definitely a good confidence boost for me. And every time I got up here, I was a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more comfortable than I was before. I was more aware of my body and what my body was doing. And there we go. And I was getting better at improvising and thinking on my feet. So. Then January, interview number 4 came along, and I was sitting in the lobby of the building waiting for my turn to come up, and I realized I really wasn't too nervous. I actually felt fine for the first time that I had been going to these interviews. And I came out of the interview feeling pretty good about it. And there's always those few curveballs that you get that you're like, oh, I never thought of that. But thanks to table topics and the speeches I was giving, I was able to, I felt, come up with some decent answers and think of ideas as I was talking with them. And it obviously paid off, because about a month later, I got the phone call from the director of admissions congratulating me on, after over 3 years, getting into their program. I had, over the course of those 3 years, many moments of doubt throughout the whole thing. And there was many times at night I would just sit in bed thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? This is ridiculous. This isn't even worth it. But I eventually, after some soul seeking, decided that it was. I mean, this is what I wanted to do, and this is what I know would make me happy. And even if it was still a long road ahead, I was going to keep working towards it and keep bettering myself until I finally made it happen. And it clearly paid off in the end. And the lessons I've learned here and the confidence that I feel this club has given me definitely played a role in my interview and getting accepted this year. But in general, it's changed how I interact with people in my day-to-day life. It's allowed me to be more assertive and be more comfortable with putting myself out there. The big thing I definitely want you to take away from this is that persistence definitely pays off. If you have a goal, just don't give up on it. Keep working towards it and keep bettering yourself and finding ways to improve yourself until you make it happen. Because trust me, I am proof that you can make it happen. This is Toastmaster.